All right, ready to dive into something kind of magical.
Oh, sounds intriguing. I'm all ears.
Today we're tackling serendipity, those moments, where the universe seems to be like, hey, check this out.
Ah, those happy accidents that lead to something amazing. I like it.
Exactly. We're going to explore this whole concept using, well, two pretty different sources, actually.
Lay it on me.
So we've got a bunch of research and articles on serendipity itself, the real nitty-gritty.
Okay, makes sense. Got to ground ourselves in the facts, right?
Right. But then, to shake things up, we're also looking at that 2001 rom-com, Serendipity.
Oh, with John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale. Now that's a fun twist.
You got it. So we'll be kind of bouncing between, real-world examples and this super romantic movie plot.
Sounds like a fascinating comparison, seeing how real life stacks up against the Hollywood version of fate.
Exactly. But before we get swept up in all that movie magic, let's start with the basics. What is serendipity, really?
Well, good old Merriam-Webster defines it as the faculty or phenomenon of finding valuable or agreeable things not sought for.
So more than just, stumbling on a $20 bill on the sidewalk.
Right. It's not just luck. It's about recognizing the potential in something unexpected, something you weren't even looking for.
Okay, so it's like being in the right place at the right time, A&D, being able to see the opportunity when it's right there.
You got it. It's that prepared mind idea.
Hmm.
Like Louis Pasteur said, in the fields of observation, chance favors only the prepared mind.
Oh, that's a good one. So you got to be ready to seize the moment when it pops up.
Exactly. And that makes me think of all those amazing scientific discoveries that happened because someone was paying attention, even when things went a little sideways.
Oh, like what?
Well, take Alexander Fleming and penicillin. I mean, talk about a happy accident.
Wait, remind me about that one. How did that all go down?
So Fleming's working in his lab, right? And he notices this bacteria-free zone on a petri dish that was, supposed to be full of bacteria.
Uh-oh. Sounds like a failed experiment.
Most of us would have just tossed it out, but Fleming, he saw something interesting there. And bam, penicillin.
No way. So a little lab mishap led to one of the most important medical breakthroughs ever.
It's crazy, right? That observation literally changed how we fight infections and saved countless lives.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time with a prepared mind. And speaking of accidental discoveries...
You thinking what I'm thinking.
Silly putty.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Who knew a failed attempt to make synthetic rubber could bring so much joy?
Right. Like a wartime experiment gone wrong becomes a childhood staple for, generations? That's wild.
It shows how serendipity can work in these surprising ways. Something seemingly insignificant or even frustrating becomes valuable.
Just gotta look at it through the right lens, huh? Makes you wonder how many mistakes are out there just waiting to be turned into something amazing.
Oh, for sure. And it's not just ancient history either. Look at that scientist, Sean Winterton, discovering a new species of lacewing on Flickr.
Wait, seriously, on Flickr?
Yep. Winterton, he's an entomologist, and he's browsing through photos and comes across this unusual insect from Malaysia.
Okay, so right place, right time, but what about the prepared mind part?
Oh, that's key. He recognized it was something totally new, something he'd never seen before. Thanks to his expertise and the way those Flickr algorithms work, boom, new species.
That's wild. So a random photo leads to a scientific discovery. Just makes you think, what else is out there hiding in plain sight?
Right. And speaking of those algorithms, it makes you wonder, could we actually design online spaces to encourage these kinds of serendipitous encounters?
Interesting. You mean engineer the internet for more happy accidents? I like the sound of that.
That's the whole idea behind the architecture of serendipity.
Yeah.
Designing online platforms to, expose us to stuff outside our usual bubbles.
I see. Because right now it feels like everything's kind of tailored to what we already like, right?
Exactly. Social media, search engines, they often feed us more of the same, creating these echo chambers. Architecture of serendipity aims to shake that up.
So instead of just getting more of what we already know, we get a little dose of the unexpected.
Right. You might encounter something that challenges your assumptions or sparks a new idea.
Kind of like a surprise detour on your usual internet route.
Exactly. And who knows where that detour might lead you? A new perspective, a new passion, maybe even a new friend.
Okay, this whole architecture of serendipity thing has got me hooked. But speaking of unexpected encounters...
Time to shift gears.
You got it. Let's talk about Serendipity the movie. Gotta dive into that since, it's right there in the title.
Absolutely. So we've got Jonathan and Sarah. They have this incredibly romantic chance meeting while Christmas shopping in New York City. Talk about a meet cute.
But there's a twist, right?
Oh, yeah. They're both actually in relationships. But that doesn't stop them from feeling this instant connection.
Ah, the classic rom-com dilemma. So what do? Just ignore this crazy chemistry.
Not a chance. They decide to leave it up to fate, put it to the test with these elaborate experiments. It's like a love story meets a social science project.
Okay, I gotta hear about these experiments. What did they come up with?
So picture this. Jonathan writes his number on a $5 bill that Sarah uses to buy breath mints. And Sarah, she writes her number in a copy of Love in the Time of Cholera that she's planning to sell.
Whoa, that's creative. It's like leaving these little breadcrumbs for destiny to follow.
Exactly. They're basically setting up these elaborate tests to see if fate will intervene and bring them back together.
Okay, but then what happens? Do they just, go their separate ways and wait for the universe to work its magic?
Well, years go by. They both get engaged to other people, but they can't shake that feeling, That one magical night they shared just keeps haunting them.
Sounds like that encounter really left a mark. Like a seed that wouldn't stop growing, even after all that time.
Exactly. And that's when things get really interesting. Jonathan, determined to find Sarah, sets out on this cross-country search. And the only clue he has is a glove he bought for her that night. Talk about a long shot.
Wow, that takes some serious dedication. So, what about Sarah? Is she just sitting around waiting for him to show up?
Not exactly. She's having second thoughts about her upcoming marriage and decides to take a chance too. She travels back to New York, hoping to reconnect with Jonathan.
Ah, I love that. They're both taking these leaps of faith, even though it seems like the odds are totally stacked against them.
It's the classic rom-com setup. They're both searching for each other, but fate seems to be playing games with them. They keep missing each other by a hair.
Oh no, the near misses. That's gotta be frustrating.
It is. The tension builds with every close call. At one point, the $5 bill with Jonathan's number resurfaces. And get this, Sarah's copy of Love in the Time of Cholera ends up in Jonathan's hands as a wedding gift.
You're kidding. It's like the universe is playing a cosmic game of keep away with their hearts.
Right. And that's where we'll leave things for now.
Ah, come on. I need to know if they finally find each other. Or does fate have other plans? No spoilers, but I'm already invested.
Don't worry. We'll get to that.
Okay, so we've talked about those scientific discoveries, and we've stumbled upon some happy accidents in history, and we even flirted with the idea of algorithms designed to surprise us online. But now I'm really curious about that whole spiritual dimension thing. Could serendipity be more than just lucky breaks?
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if those seemingly random moments of good fortune are actually like glimpses into something bigger than ourselves, something that connects us to a force beyond our understanding?
I can definitely see how those aha moments could feel like little winks from the universe, Suddenly everything just clicks into place and you realize you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Right. And even if it took the most roundabout way to get there.
Exactly. And for some people, those experiences can be deeply, deeply spiritual, right? They might interpret them as signs of divine guidance or evidence that there's a plan unfolding, even when life feels totally chaotic.
It's like trusting that there's a bigger picture.
Yeah, one that we might not fully grasp.
Exactly. And embracing serendipity often requires a willingness to surrender to the unknown, to let go of the need to micromanage every little aspect of our lives.
Oh, absolutely. And that can be really challenging, especially in a world that constantly pushes us to be in control, to be productive, to have all the answers.
It's hard time.
No kidding. We're constantly bombarded with information and to-do lists and expectations. It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and to forget to look around, to notice those subtle signs or those unexpected opportunities.
You just get tunnel vision.
Yeah, totally. But how do we cultivate that openness, that sense of wonder and possibility? Is it all about meditation and prayer? Do we need to become a mystic living on a mountaintop to tap into that?
Well, a mountaintop retreat might not be for everyone, but you've hit on some key elements there. Cultivating mindfulness can definitely play a role. Practices like meditation can help us quiet the mental chatter, be more present in the moment, and notice the beauty and the synchronicity that often goes unnoticed in the rush of daily life.
So it's about slowing down, paying attention, maybe even taking a few deep breaths once in a while.
Exactly.
Makes sense. But what about those of us who, aren't exactly meditation gurus? Are there more, shall we say, practical ways to invite serendipity into our lives?
Absolutely. Remember that architecture of serendipity concept we talked about earlier? Well, we can apply that principle to our offline lives as well. It's about creating opportunities for those those chance encounters, those unexpected connections that might not happen if we just stick to our usual routines.
Okay, I am all for breaking out of routines. So what are we talking about here? Joining a pottery class, striking up conversations with strangers in line at the grocery store, spontaneously booking a flight to a random country.
Those are all great examples. It's about being open to new experiences, even if they seem small or insignificant at first. Maybe it's taking a different route to work, saying yes to that social invitation you'd normally decline, or finally checking out that quirky museum you've always been curious about.
So it's not necessarily about grand gestures, but more about those little nudges we give ourselves to step outside of our comfort zones and embrace the unexpected.
Exactly. It's about creating space for serendipity to work its magic. And who knows, that small act of courage, that willingness to try something different, might just lead to a life-changing encounter, a new passion, or even a hilarious anecdote you can share on a future podcast episode.
Now you're speaking my language. But I have to ask, is there a risk of trying too hard? I mean, we talked about how the movie Serendipity was criticized for being, a bit contrived. Where do we draw the line between being open to possibility and trying to force a specific outcome?
It's a valid question for sure. And it goes back to that delicate balance between intention and surrender. We can certainly set intentions. We can put ourselves out there, create opportunities, but ultimately we have to let go of the need to control the outcome.
So it's like planting seeds and trusting that they'll grow in their own time, in their own way, without us needing to micromanage every sprout and leaf.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And remember, sometimes the most beautiful gardens are the ones that grow a little wild with unexpected blooms popping up in the most delightful places.
Oh, I love that analogy. It reminds me that embracing serendipity is about embracing a certain amount of chaos, a willingness to let go of the reins and see where life takes us. But before we completely lose ourselves in a philosophical garden of metaphors, let's circle back to the movie for a moment. Remember those experiments Jonathan and Sarah devised to test fate?
Ah, yes, those playful attempts to leave their future in the hands of destiny.
Right.
They were certainly creative, even if a bit far-fetched.
Okay, so maybe leaving your phone number on a $5 bill isn't exactly a foolproof plan.
Yeah.
But it does raise an interesting question. If we were to design our own little experiments to invite serendipity into our lives, what would they look like? And more importantly, would they actually work?
Now, that's a question I think our listeners would love to ponder. What if we challenge them to come up with their own serendipity experiments? Nothing too crazy, of course, but something that pushes them a little outside their comfort zone and opens them up to unexpected possibilities.
Ooh, I'm in. But let's be clear, we don't want anyone getting arrested for defacing currency or stalking unsuspecting strangers. We're talking about, ethical, creative, and maybe even a little bit playful ways to nudge the universe in the direction of serendipity.
Absolutely. Think of it as a gentle invitation to the universe. A way of saying, hey, I'm open to something new, something unexpected, something magical. And who knows, maybe that small act of openness will lead to something truly, truly extraordinary.
All right, I'm officially on board with this Serendipity Experiment Challenge. But before we unleash this on our listeners, let's take a quick break to gather our thoughts, maybe brainstorm a few ideas of our own. We'll be back soon to wrap up this deep dive into the delightful world of serendipity. Okay, so we're back, ready to kind of wrap things up with this whole serendipity thing. We've covered a lot. Scientific discoveries, rom-com stuff, online algorithms, even like a little bit of divine intervention.
Yeah, we really went there.
We did. And we've even challenged our listeners to design their own serendipity experiments.
Right, little ways to kind of nudge the universe.
Yeah, invite those happy accidents. But that brings up a big question, right? How do we actually make serendipity work for us? Do we just sit back and wait for the magic to happen? Or is there something more we can do, something more proactive?
Well, I think as we've kind of seen, it's not about just passively waiting for lightning to strike.
Right, got to be a little more active.
Yeah, it's about cultivating that mindset, openness, curiosity, and being willing to step outside of our comfort zones.
So it's like we're creating the right conditions, the fertile ground for those serendipitous seeds to take root and blossom.
Exactly.
But how do we know which seeds to plant, so to speak?
That's the thing.
There are just so many possibilities.
I know, right? But I don't think it's about finding the perfect path. I think it's more about just taking action,
Yeah.
even if it's just a small step.
So less about the grand plan, more about just putting ourselves out there.
Exactly.
Like those serendipity
Right.
experiments.
Those are a great way to kind of jumpstart the process.
Yeah, yeah.
And remember, they don't have to be these elaborate, life-altering things.
Oh, okay, good.
It could be as simple as striking up a conversation with someone new, exploring a different part of your city, trying a hobby you've always been curious about.
Just shaking things up a little.
Yeah.
Giving ourselves permission to play, to explore, to be a little more spontaneous, see where it leads.
I like that.
And who knows, those seemingly insignificant actions might create a ripple effect that leads to something truly extraordinary.
You never know. And that's the beauty of serendipity. It's often those small, seemingly insignificant moments that end up having the biggest impact.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Remember Alexander Fleming and that Petri dish?
Oh, right, right.
It was just a simple observation, a moment of curiosity that led to a discovery that, changed medical history.
It's true. It's true. So we don't always need to have the answers.
Right.
Nope. Or a perfectly mapped out plan. Sometimes it's just about showing up, being present, and paying attention to those little nudges.
Those little whispers from the universe.
Exactly. And, serendipity isn't just about those big aha moments or life-changing discoveries. It's also about those smaller everyday moments, right? The little things that bring us joy and remind us that we're all connected.
Oh. Absolutely. Like running into an old friend or finding a book that just speaks to you, or even just catching a glimpse of a beautiful sunset.
Those moments might seem small, but they really do add up over time.
They do. They remind us that we're not just isolated individuals.
Right. We're part of something much bigger.
And isn't that what makes life so rich and surprising? Those unexpected connections, those moments of synchronicity, those happy accidents that remind us that the universe has a sense of humor and maybe even a little bit of magic up its sleeve.
I think so. I really do. And as we wrap up this deep dive into serendipity, I encourage our listeners to hold on to that sense of wonder.
Right, yeah.
Embrace the unexpected and trust that even when life feels uncertain, there's always the possibility of something beautiful just around the corner. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, dear listeners, as you go forth into the world, keep your eyes open, your hearts receptive, and your minds prepared for those delightful moments of serendipity. Who knows what wonders await?